Where do you want to start? Good morning. I know we're having...
Do the hymn sing, but not during the services.
Okay. We're having a little late start today. We are going to do one song of a hymn sing because I know that it said hymn sing in the order of service. So we'll do one that's not in the hymnal, though. It's called, we'll put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. And so you just have to know this one line. You got to put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. That's it. And then there's chorus where you repeat after me. It's a call and response. So here we go. 1, 2, 1. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead. We gotta put, everyone, we gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. But don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. But don't you give up. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. You can clap if you want to. Lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other. We gotta put one foot in front of the other. And lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other. And lead with love. Lift up your eyes. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. The path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. Come on. And lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other. And lead. We gotta put one foot in front of the other. And lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other. I know you're scared. And I'm scared too. But here I am. Right next to you. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. We gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other. One more time. Lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Thank you.
Good morning, and welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. I'm Kathy Putnam, and I'm a member of the Worship Associates Ministry here at the church. I especially want to welcome any visitors or newcomers to our church and to call your attention to a special note for you, welcome guests and newcomers, on the back side of your order of service. I'd also like to welcome those of you attending online. Lyrics to hymns and all elements of the service may be found on the screen, and a complete order of service, including this week's announcements, is available via the link in the Sunday morning email and on the church's website. Our in-person Sunday social is held immediately following the service. And now, if you haven't already done so, please turn off cell phones or silence them so we can maintain a worshipful experience. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. Now we're going to hear from Alexa about today's Share the Plate.
Good morning. I'm Alexa Adamo Valverde. I'm the Managing Director of the Center for Community Connection, or C4CC. We are a new farm-based mental health nonprofit organization in Chatham County for youth ages 12 to 26. We were founded a year ago by 3 occupational therapists, a psychiatric dietitian, and a mental health counselor to address North Carolina's youth mental health crisis through a holistic, justice-centered approach that promotes belonging, resilience, and a sense of purpose among young people, an antidote to isolation, loneliness, and mental distress. We're led by an interprofessional team of OTs, social workers, counselors, psychiatric dietitians, nurse practitioners, music therapists, and recreational therapists. We C4CC offers 3 pathways to engagement: therapeutic workshops, comprehensive mental health care, and also farm engagement. Our programs are free and they're farm-based at the UNC Center for Excellence in Community Mental Health's farm at Penny Lane that's owned by Cross Disability Services, or XDS. And in 2024-25, we just launched our programs on Thursday with students from One Academy in Chatham County. It's a new alternative school. And we're partnering with Duke's OT therapy, Occupational Therapy Doctorate Division to scale our model, to test it, make sure what we're doing is going to make an impact, and eventually to scale across the region. With your support through today's Share the Plate, we're building an innovative center where young people can thrive, connect, find purpose. If you choose to contribute through check, please write STP or with your online donation. So thank you, Community Church of Chapel Hill, for all you do to support the community. And if you'd like to find out more, please visit me at our table in the Sunday Social. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa. Please rise now in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 1028, The Fire of Commitment.
In the faith set from the fear, when the fire of commitment sets our minds and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our minds and souls ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our minds and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, our promise finds fulfillment, and our future can begin.
We live in times that call for courage. We are called to love this world despite its brokenness. We live in times that call for courage. We are called to defend the vulnerable, and there are so many who are vulnerable. We live in times that call for courage. We are called to find wellsprings of resilience and resistance and hope within us. We live in times that call for courage. Come, let us worship together. You'll find the words to our chalice lighting in your order of service. If you wish to do so, please join me in reading them. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path is never clear. The stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone.
Some of you may remember this song. It's closing number of a musical we did 2 years ago called As You Like It here. And 2 years ago we turned the sanctuary into the Forest of Arden, and this week we're turning it into Bikini Bottom. So we've gone from Shakespeare to SpongeBob. But this is written by Shana Tao, Still I Will Love.
On the heaviest day, on the bitterest night, still I will love, still I will love. When I'm tired and hungry, when we're in a fight, still I will love, still I will love. As we change and we grow, as we ripen and rot, still I will love, still I will love. When nothing turns out quite the way that we thought, still I will love, still I will love you. When I'm scared to lay bare all the pain in my chest, still I will love, still I will love. At our bravest and weakest, our worst and our best, still I will love, still I will love. When we lose all our hair and our teeth and our minds, still I will love, still I will love. When the scenery falls and I mess up my lines, still I will love, I make a promise, I make a vow to myself, to you, to everyone right now. When the world tries to tear us apart and Still I Will Love. It's great to have an encore from As You Like It. Just so you know, I appeared as a masked luchador, a professional wrestler, Bronco Internacional, in that play, musical. There will be no encore of that. I want to remind us of our practice that we hold for joys and sorrows. You can find, as it is each week, in your order of service, the instructions there. Each week in our service, we hold a time for the sharing of the personal joys and sorrows that we bring with us in to this community. If you've come this morning with a significant personal joy or a significant sorrow, you're invited to come forward, place a stone in the water, share your name, and in a sentence or two, share your joy or your sorrow. Let us enter into this time of tenderness and trust. Joel, we'll start with you.
Good morning. My name is Joëlle Bourgeois, and I have a great sorrow to share. Many of you know about the senseless violence happening in Haiti. Gangs have taken over, and so when my family immigrated, half of them came and half of them stayed. This is many decades ago. So I found out yesterday that one of my cousin's daughters, she's a new mom. She was driving with her husband, and she was shot by a stray bullet, and she died. And she had just had a baby boy, and her husband had just been kidnapped and was released, and they were just all happy to have the family together. So please keep them in your hearts. Thank you.
I also have a sorrow. Some of you may remember when the choir sang a song about Ukraine, and two good friends of mine that are Ukrainian came to listen to us. My friend Alasia, her brother was a soldier in Ukraine and was hit by shrapnel, and struggling for his life right now in very difficult situations. The last I heard, they're struggling to make a magnet that's strong enough to take the shrapnel out of his head. So keep them in your thoughts, please.
Good morning. My name is Wendy. I've been struggling with reflux for the past couple months. I've pretty much lost my voice. But I wanted to thank my husband for his gratitude and for all the things that he's done to help keep our family together. And I have an endoscopy tomorrow, so just keep me in your thoughts around noon. I'm a little nervous about it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carol Rogers, and I'm here with Jenny, my daughter Jenny Rogers Green, and we're here with her whole family, which is nice, her husband and two children. The flowers are given in memory of my former husband of 43 years, who passed away this last weekend. He was from Corinth, Vermont, where we grew up. And let Jenny say something.
Yeah, my dad passed away after a long illness with Lewy body dementia. I was supporting him over the last year, traveling up once a month. It was very challenging for us, and my husband, Dave, was very supportive. And Calvin and Alex are here, so I want to thank them. And it is, it's a very challenging time for us. And so, while this is a time of great sorrow for us, I am very joyful that my dad is free from the prison that his body was holding him in. And I was during that song. that song was perfect from the choir. My dad was full of joy in his life with music. He was a man who was singing on mountaintops, yodeling. He danced and he sang through his life. He was a member of many musical groups. We could not stop him from singing. He wanted to, sing. He wanted us to celebrate his life. So I am so full of gratitude. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Dean. I have a lot of joy and gratitude for this church community. I haven't been able to be as physically present this fall, and yet I still very much feel the presence of this community. A follow-up, I got to see my dad after his heart surgery. Thank you for all the good energy. It was wonderful to see him. He's still healing and getting stronger. And a lot of gratitude, too, for just all the community organizations, nonprofits that have really reached out and reminded us all to really take time to process our difficult emotions right now. And these are groups that are often marginalized and oppressed and could really lean into fear, but they're leaning into hope and community, and that has been very helpful. And lastly, we got to see our son at Oberlin, Levi Putnam, last weekend, and it was wonderful, and he's thriving. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Melva Fager-Oken, and I want to share the joy of the final thing I did to help make sure that every vote counted. And this was part of, again, a large group at the church after the election was over, the really important work of helping to cull and for people who had been rejected to help them get so their vote counted. So there was one woman I was talking to, and she would always voted, but she showed up without a photo ID that final election day. And so we had several conversations back and forth, and then finally I heard that, yes, she had voted. I was joyful, she was joyful, and her final words to me were, next election, I want to be like you. I want to make sure that people vote. Hallelujah.
A final stone is placed for all the joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts that were not spoken this morning. Won't you join with me for a few moments of prayer? Spirit of life, source of our being and our becoming, we gather with us holding the joys and the sorrows of our lives, the joys and sorrows of our families, joys and sorrows of our community, and indeed the joys and sorrows of this world. Our compassion reaches to one another as we heal from illness, as we mourn loss, as we remember lives that touched our own. As we search to make sense out of violence and chaos and confusion. In our gathering today, we search for those well springs of courage. The courage to work for the world we want to see. The courage to show up and speak out. for what is true, as well as that internal courage, that courage to make meaning, that courage to admit our vulnerability, that courage to love. As we hold the time of silence, let us reflect on the joys and the sorrows of our own hearts. I invite you to be still with me for a few moments. Amen. Blessed be. We are going to remain seated as we sing our sung meditation. It is number 396. It is a hymn about rising to courage, and we will sing it together.
We'll sing it together twice in unison, and then we'll try it as a round.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul, I know this rose, 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 I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul, I know my soul, I know this rose, I know this rose
Last summer, I announced that we would be revisiting the theme of courage throughout the fall. And over the past several months, we've explored different facets of courage in our worship. We've explored outward-facing courage, the courage to take bold action, to show up, to speak out, even when doing so takes us out of our comfort zone. And we've also talked about inward-facing courage, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to forgive, the courage to live with what Brené Brown calls wholeheartedness. And as I planned this series of sermons exploring courage, I knew I wanted to explore what we might call existential courage. I'll say more about what that means in just a bit. And I knew especially that I wanted to revisit or visit a famous work of theology on the subject of courage. So my sermon this morning is divided into two parts. In the first part, I'm going to introduce us to the life and thought of Paul Tillich. Now, despite the fact that I'm talking about a 20th century theologian, please don't tune out. Both his life and his thought contain much, I think, that might speak to us today. And then in the second part of the sermon, we're going to leave the 20th century behind and explore what it might be like to cultivate an existential courage in the here and the now. But first, a little history. So Paul Tillich was born in 1886 in a small town on the border of Germany and Poland, a town that has, through the years, been sometimes part of Germany and sometimes part of Poland, depending on the political powers of the day. His father was a Lutheran pastor, and he took after his dad, studying theology and religion. In his 20s, Tillich became a chaplain in the German military during World War II, and he served in the trenches. As a chaplain, he buried his closest friend, along with many of his fellow soldiers. He was also hospitalized for combat trauma on 3 separate occasions. His experience of war left him broken. Following World War I, Tillich became a professor of theology and rose to prominence in this field. In 1933, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, and one of Hitler's first acts was to purge the universities. And Tillich was among the first group of professors fired under the Nazi regime. When news of his firing reached the United States, the faculty of Union Theological Seminary in New York City voted unanimously to each take a 5% pay cut in order to bring Tillich to the U.S. This act of solidarity is all the more impressive considering 1933 was the height of the Great Depression. This was a hardship and a sacrifice. Tillich would spend the rest of his life living in the United States. During the Second World War, he actually contributed to Allied war efforts by recording over 100 talks in German. These were broadcast by Voice of America Radio behind enemy lines, and his talks had the aim of spurring resistance to the Nazi government. Tillich taught at Union for more than 2 decades before going on to teach for 7 years at Harvard, and his career ended at the University of Chicago, where he taught from 1962 until his death in 1965. I didn't mention this at the first service, but Tillich was actually featured on the cover of Time magazine in 1959, which not a lot of theology professors get featured on the cover of Time magazine. Tillich's most famous book was The Courage to Be, published in 1952, and it's a work of Christian existentialist thought. Existentialism is the idea that we find and create meaning out of our own lived experience. Existentialism denies that there's any larger meaning or purpose in the universe. But for existentialists, the universe is absurd and incomprehensible. Rather, we are the makers of meaning, and we create the meaning and the purpose of our lives. In The Courage to Be, Paul Tillich identifies 3 sources of anxiety that we must overcome to be able to live meaningfully and courageously. The first source of anxiety is death, mortality, finitude. We overcome the anxiety of death with the courage of confidence, the courage to trust in our own search for truth. The second source of anxiety Tillich names is guilt, the idea that we will be judged for not meeting some external standard. And Tillich wrote that we overcome the anxiety of guilt with the courage of acceptance. To quote him, "The courage to be is the courage to accept oneself as accepted in spite of being unacceptable. And finally, the third type of anxiety that he names is the anxiety of meaninglessness and emptiness. Even though the world cannot give us definite meaning, cannot give our lives definite meaning, we hold the power to create our own meaning. Tillich calls this the courage to be. Tillich says, the courage to be is rooted in a God who appears after God has disappeared in the anxiety of doubt. Tillich's life brought him through the trauma of war, the economic hardships of the Great Depression. As his own country descended into fascism, Tillich suffered political persecution that cost him first his career and then his country. Out of violence, trauma, and loss, he remade a new life, responding to the absurdity and uncertainty of his times by claiming for himself the courage to be.
Freely have we received of gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. Today, our generosity extends beyond our walls to provide support for the Center for Community Connection. If you're writing a check, please write it to the Community Church of Chapel Hill and put STP on the memo line. If you wish to donate online, there's a QR code on the back of the order of service, or there's information on the church's website. We'll now receive the morning offering.
As you can see, this is from a new musical called Suffs that is about the history of the women's suffragist movement, which is a decades-long struggle. And but I think you'll see the words have a special resonance today.
You won't live to see the future that you fight for. Maybe no one gets to reach that perfect day. If the work is never over, then how do you keep marching anyway?
Do you carry your banner as far as you can, rewriting the world with your imperfect plan, till the next stubborn girl picks it up in a picket line over and over again, and you join in the chorus of centuries chanting to her? The path will be twisted and risky and slow,
But keep marching, keep marching. Will you fail or prevail? Well, you may never know, but keep marching.
keep marching, 'cause your ancestors are all the proof you need.
That progress is possible, not guaranteed. It will only be made if we keep marching on. Keep marching on.
Justice
like Tillich's world, our world is full of absurdity and uncertainty, chaos and confusion. We find ourselves gripped by anxiety and the threat of disorienting change. What I want to talk about this morning is existentialism and how I find existentialism to be a resource of meaning in challenging times. I don't want to be seen as forcing existentialism upon you, and at the same time, it is a tradition of thought that speaks to me when I am feeling anxious and worried. The great existentialist writers, from Kierkegaard to Camus, from Nietzsche to Jean-Paul Sartre, from Dostoevsky to Viktor Frankl, all shared a sense that the world is absurd and paradoxical and incomprehensible. But they did not give up hope. Existentialism rejects the idea of some overarching narrative, a direction that our world is necessarily heading, but it doesn't reject or doesn't accept that the world is without meaning. It's not the same as nihilism, the idea that nothing has meaning and nothing matters. Existentialism claims that we have the capacity, the ability, the necessity of creating our own meaning out of the world. This is a time when some of the super stories, the grand narratives, are being challenged. And existentialism really emerged when a lot of the grand narratives, a lot of the big stories, both religious stories and political stories and secular stories and scientific stories, were faltering and not speaking to our lived reality of the world. So I want to talk about a couple of examples when I've found that existentialist thinkers have spoken to me in challenging and anxious times. The first time was during the beginning of COVID. The beginning of COVID, I decided that I ought to reread Albert Camus' The Plague, probably the great existentialist novel, which I hadn't read since my high school years. I heard an ooh. It sounds like maybe this was masochistic on my part. The Plague, for those who are unfamiliar with it, is a novel that's set in a city in Algeria afflicted by the bubonic plague. The city goes into quarantine, and the city's inhabitants are forced to reckon with how to respond to this crisis of mortality. The protagonist in the story is a doctor, Dr. Ryu. And there was a bit of dialogue that I found really meaningful, where Dr. Ryu says to someone asking him but the meaning of this. Dr. Ryu says, "I have no idea what's awaiting me or what will happen when this all ends. But for the moment, I know this. There are sick people, and they need curing." It's about leaving this idea of this meaning or direction to what's happening, to this sense of what my role is, what my work is. And I'll just say that during COVID, reading that monologue, that dialogue, helped me to feel centered and grounded and purposeful instead of anxious and despairing. I have no idea what's awaiting me or what will happen when this all ends, but for the moment I know this. I said to myself, I'm a minister and I know how to do that, so let's do that. If you do an internet search for Paul Tillich, Unitarian Universalist sermon, which I did, by the way, You will find that UU ministers, Unitarian Universalist ministers, tend to invoke and quote Tillich in times of shock and profound anxiety. On one Sunday following a major catastrophe, one minister I know turned to Tillich, preaching on this quote: "There is something immovable and unshakable which becomes manifest in the crumbling of our world. On the boundaries of the finite, the infinite becomes visible. This is why the prophets were able to face the shaking of the foundations. It's the only way to look at shaking without recoiling from it." We live in a time of profound anxiety. And against the anxiety of living in an absurd world, we can find confidence in our own ability to make meaning, to find purpose, to choose love, to do what the times ask. Against the anxiety of feeling like we may not be able to meet the challenges before us, let us find confidence in our own acceptability, in our own capacity to practice self-acceptance. To quote Tillich one last time, "We perceive the power of grace in our relations to ourselves, because we feel that we have been accepted by that which is greater than us. We can't force ourselves to accept ourselves. We cannot compel anyone to accept themselves. But sometimes it happens that we receive the power to say yes to ourselves. That peace enters into us and makes us whole. That self-hate and self-contempt disappear. And that our self is reunited with itself. It is then that we can say that grace has come upon us." That's what I have for you this morning. And it's what I wish for you in the days and weeks ahead. May grace, may self-acceptance, and may the courage to be nourish and sustain you this day and in the days to come. Your courage heartens me. Amen, and thank you. And let us end with a song about saying yes to life, to love, to truth, and to courage. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we sing our closing hymn, "Just as Long as I Have Breath."
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
The words to extinguish in your chalice, our chalice, is in your order of service. Please join me in saying them. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now let's thank all those who contributed to making this service so special today. Now it's time to sing Shalom. If you feel comfortable, hold your hands out to the person next to you, and if not, cross your hands over your heart.